first night I came back. I heard someone walking inside her house, but the lights were off, and she'd been buried for 3 weeks. I stopped at the gate. The same iron gate she never let anyone touch. It creaked open by itself. Slow, long, like a breath held too long. The sky was gray that evening. No birds, no wind, just the sound of my shoes on dry dirt. The olive trees leaned toward the house, their branches heavy, like listening. I told myself it was only the wind, only memory playing tricks again. But memory doesn't smell like smoke or whisper your name from the window. I saw her chair through the glass, the same one by the fireplace, the blanket still folded over the armrest, her knitting needles exactly where she left them. Everything looked paused, like she had stepped outside for a minute and would come back any second. I unlocked the door. The metal felt warm, too warm, like someone had just used it. Inside, the air was heavy, a mix of burned herbs, iron, and something sweet, something that made my throat tighten. I called her name once. It sounded wrong in that silence. Too loud, too alive. The house remembered me. The floor groaned under my weight. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, and in every corner, a faint humming, low, steady, female. I walked toward the kitchen. The jars were still there, lined up in perfect rows along the wall. Inside each one, something floated, roots, feathers, bits of cloth, and one that looked like an eye. Too small to be human, but too human to ignore. Her handwriting covered the labels. Black ink faded to brown. Names, dates, prayers maybe. I read one out loud, and the humming stopped instantly. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pressed against my chest, like the air itself was listening. I reached for the nearest jar. The glass was cold, almost wet. Inside, a small figure made of twine, its chest wrapped in red thread, a name carved into the base, my mother's. I dropped it before I could stop myself. The glass cracked but didn't shatter, and from somewhere above me, a slow dragging sound began. Back and forth, like someone moving furniture, or a body. I remembered what she used to say when I was little. Never go upstairs after sunset. I asked her why once. She smiled and said, because that's when they wake up. I thought she meant rats. Or ghosts, maybe. But now the sound was heavier, slower, deliberate. I took one step toward the stairs. The floor moaned beneath me. The humming returned, louder this time, but not from the kitchen. From the attic, something brushed against my ankle, soft, light, like hair. I froze, looked down. Nothing there, just dust curling across the floor. The dragging stopped. The air shifted, and in the reflection of the window, I saw movement on the landing above. A shape standing just beyond the shadows. Still, waiting. I couldn't see a face, only the outline of her dress. The same one she was buried in. I whispered her name again, and the shape tilted its head, like it recognized me. The jar behind me cracked again, a thin line crawling through the glass, and inside, the little figure twitched once. Its red thread loosened slowly, unraveling on its own. I felt the floorboards tremble under my feet, like something moving inside the house itself. The humming turned to a voice now, faint, distant, singing words I almost remembered, words she used to whisper before bed, the lullaby with no ending. I stood there, between the kitchen and the stairs, listening to her voice echo through the ceiling. Sweet, broken, familiar, calling me by the name only she used. And when I finally looked up, there was light under the attic door. Soft, golden, pulsing like a heartbeat. It shouldn't have been there. There was no electricity anymore. But it was warm against the ceiling wood, flickering gently, like something alive, like it was waiting for me to climb. I took a breath and placed my hand on the first step. The first step groaned under my foot, old wood crying out after years of silence. The second one barely held my weight. Dust rose like breath from the boards. Each step sounded too loud, like someone answering from above. The light under the attic door flickered. It pulsed slowly, like a heart struggling to keep rhythm. I thought about leaving, about locking the door and pretending none of this was real, but something pulled me upward. Something warm and familiar. Halfway up, I smelled it again. The mix of herbs, ash, and iron. Thicker now, stronger. Almost sweet, like honey left too long in heat. It wrapped around me as I climbed. Soft. Invisible hands brushing my skin. I reached the door and hesitated. The light dimmed the moment I touched the handle, then brightened again, like it was breathing with me. I whispered her name once more. The door creaked open without force. The air inside was still, heavy, alive somehow. I could hear the faint buzz of flies. But when I looked, there were none. Just jars again. Rows of them filling every shelf. Some open, some sealed with wax. Each jar had something inside. Small things, delicate things. Locks of hair, yellowed photographs, bones the size of matchsticks. And names written underneath. Names from our village. People still alive. People who'd always avoided our house. I recognized one. Maria Ruiz. The baker's wife. She lost her voice years ago. Doctors never found a reason. The jar beneath her name was empty, except for a small coil of red thread. I took a step back. My shoulder brushed against something hanging from the ceiling. Dried herbs, flowers maybe, but mixed with them were small shapes, bird skulls, and one that looked like a human finger. The room tilted for a second. My vision swam in and out of focus. I felt lightheaded. The air buzzed in my ears like bees trapped in a jar. And then I heard her voice again. Closer this time. Soft. Right beside me. I told you not to come up here. I turned fast. Nothing there. Only shadows. But the light from below was gone. The stairs behind me disappeared into black. I took a step back toward them. And the floor groaned again. A whisper followed. Low. Shaking. Older than memory. You shouldn't have opened the door. The jars started to rattle, not all at once, one by one. A low tremor moved across the shelves, glass tapping like teeth chattering in the cold. Something inside them began to move, threads tightening, knots twisting on their own. Inside one jar, a shape turned its head. A doll of straw and fabric, its mouth stitched shut with black string. I leaned closer without meaning to, and the stitches broke. The jar cracked. The doll's mouth opened, and I heard a voice come out, a whisper that sounded like a child, but said my name the way only she did, the way my grandmother used to when I was small. The light dimmed again. Something brushed past my back, a soft drag of cloth and skin. I didn't move, couldn't move. My body wouldn't obey. I tried to speak, to say her name again, but the air turned thick. My breath caught in my throat. Something cold pressed against my neck. A fingertip, maybe, or a nail. I turned my head slowly, and there she was, standing at the far end of the attic, half in shadow, her face pale, almost translucent. Her eyes black with light moving behind them. She smiled the same smile she used to, the kind that never reached her eyes. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her, and in one of them, she held the same cracked jar from downstairs, the one with my mother's name on it. She raised it gently, tilted her head, and said almost tenderly, "You shouldn't have broken it, Nina." The jar in her hand began to glow, faint red, pulsing like blood behind glass. The humming started again, not from her lips, but from the walls, from the floor beneath me, from inside my chest. And just as I opened my mouth to scream, the light went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. The house stopped breathing. For a second I thought I'd gone deaf. Then I heard her whisper again. Closer this time, right behind me. "Don't look!" I froze where I stood. The air was cold enough to sting my eyes. I could taste the dust, the iron, the years. Something moved near the ceiling. Slow scraping sounds. My hand brushed the wall, searching for the stairs. But the door was gone. Only wood. No handle, no gap of light. I whispered her name again, and that's when I heard the second voice. Not hers, smaller, younger, a girl's whisper echoing inside the jars, repeating one word: buried, buried, buried. My knees gave out. The floor groaned under me like it wanted me gone, but I couldn't move. Every sound in the attic circled closer. Feet that weren't mine walking through the dust. Something brushed my hair again, soft, curious, almost kind. I turned too fast and saw her hand for the first time. It wasn't pale anymore. It looked alive, veins moving like threads under her skin, her fingernails long and blackened, tapping gently on the jar she held. The glow from inside it lit her face. She looked younger now, her mouth trembling between a smile and something else. I'd never seen her eyes so dark, like wells filled with moving water. She tilted her head slowly. "Why did you open it, Hia?" Her voice cracked halfway through the word. Something inside the jar pulsed with light again, and I realized the glow came from within the figure, the small doll I'd dropped earlier. It was breathing, tiny chest rising and falling inside the glass, the red thread tightening around it, each breath sharper than the last. Then the thread snapped, a sound like bone breaking underwater. The light inside the jar went out, and from downstairs came a knock. 1, 2, 3 slow knocks on the front door. No one else knew I was here. No one would come this far out after dark. The knocks came again, faster, harder, desperate now. The walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Her eyes never left mine. She didn't move, didn't blink, just whispered, "Don't open it." Then silence again, the kind of silence that hums inside your bones. The attic shifted beneath my feet. A low groan ran through the beams, and the floor began to sink, just slightly, enough to feel movement beneath the wood. I dropped to my knees and pressed my ear against it. There was something under there, scratching, slow and patient, like fingers dragging through dirt. The smell rose again, wet earth this time, fresh, heavy, like an open grave after rain. I backed away from the spot, but it followed me, the floorboards trembling under each step. Something alive down there, something waiting to be let out. The jars on the shelves began to hum again. One by one, their wax seals started to melt. Threads slipped out like veins searching for air. They crawled toward me, slow, deliberate, wrapping around my shoes, my wrists, my throat. I tried to pull them off. They burned cold against my skin, and as I tore one free, I saw something beneath the wax. Her name, my grandmother's name carved into the wood itself. It wasn't written, it was alive. The letters pulsing with light from inside the grain, moving like veins through the house, running through the beams, the floor, the walls. She spoke again, softly, almost like a prayer. "You can't leave, Nina." "Not yet." Her face was close to mine now, too close. Her breath smelled like herbs and smoke, and something sweet underneath, something like rot hidden under honey. I closed my eyes, but I could still see her. Behind my eyelids, the light pulsing in time with her words. Blood remembers. It always does. When I opened my eyes again, she was gone. The attic empty, the jars still. Only the box in the center of the room remained, the one sealed with wax and animal skin. And this time, it was open. Inside, something small moved in the dark. And when I leaned closer to see, it whispered my name. The whisper came again, soft, tender, almost afraid. It sounded like me, my own voice, but smaller, younger. I leaned closer to the box. Inside, something shifted under the cloth. A faint glow breathing through the fabric. The smell of dirt and lavender filled the air. My hand shook as I lifted the edge, and there it was, a small figure, carved from wood and wrapped in thread. Its face looked like mine, every detail, even the scar on my lip. I dropped it instantly. It hit the floor and rolled into the dark. The humming started again, not from the jars this time, from under the floor, deep, pulsing, like a heartbeat. I ran to the stairs, but the door was sealed shut again. Wood nailed into wood, no escape, only that low sound, rising and falling, breathing with the house. I called her name, louder this time, but it wasn't her who answered. It was the voice from inside the box. Still soft, still mine, saying words I couldn't understand. The air thickened again. My eyes watered from the smell, something sweet burning behind the walls, herbs and wax melting together, smoke without fire. I pressed my hand against the nearest beam. It was warm, almost hot, like blood moving beneath the wood and under my palm. I felt it, a faint rhythm, matching my pulse exactly. The attic lights flickered once, then steadied again, and I saw movement outside the small window. Shapes gathering near the tree line, shadows that didn't move with the wind. I stepped closer. The glass was fogged from the inside. I wiped it with my sleeve and froze. They were people, standing in the field behind the house, silent, still, facing the attic window. Dozens of them, maybe more, their faces hidden by the dark. But I could see the outline of their hands, each one holding something small and round. Jars, the same kind from the shelves. I whispered to myself that it wasn't real, that it had to be a trick of the light. But one of them moved closer, and I recognized the limp. It was Maria Ruiz, the baker's wife. Her lips moved slowly, like she was trying to speak through water, and though I couldn't hear her voice, I understood what she said. Give it back. The others joined in, their mouths moving together, repeating the same words. Give it back. Give it back. The jars on the shelves began to rattle again, their lids spinning in unison, the light inside them growing brighter, the threads slithering like veins toward the window. I stumbled backward, hit the edge of the table. The small carved figure rolled out of the dark. It stopped against my foot. The moment I touched it, everything stopped. No humming, no movement, no sound, only silence, and the faint sound of breathing. I looked down. The figure in my hand was changing, the threads tightening, reshaping its face. It no longer looked like me. It looked like her. My grandmother. Her voice came from everywhere now. From the walls, the jars, the air itself. You shouldn't fight it, Nina. Her tone wasn't angry. It was sad, almost loving. I wanted to scream, but something heavy pressed against my chest, like invisible hands keeping me still. The attic light pulsed again, and the shadows outside moved closer to the house. Their faces glowed faintly now, pale, hollow, empty eyes staring up at me. I realized they weren't alive, not really, just empty shells filled with whispers. The house trembled as if something underneath was waking up. Boards split with a sharp crack, cold air burst from below, and I smelled it again. The earth, the rot, the memory of graves. I dropped the figure, but it didn't fall. It hung in the air for a second, spinning slowly. Then it turned to face me. The wooden lips moved once, and my voice came out, whispering the same word from before. Buried. The floor beneath me split open, a crack running straight through the attic, and the light from below turned red again. I fell to my knees, covering my ears. The whispers filled the air like wind in a storm. Names, prayers, cries, all tangled together in one endless breath. And through all of it, her voice rose above the rest. Clear, steady, almost proud. It's your turn now, Hia. The attic shook one last time. The window burst inward. Cold night air flooded the room, and everything went still. The silence didn't last long. It never does in this house. The boards beneath me began to breathe again. Slow, heavy, patient, I stood up. The floor was still warm from where I'd knelt, and from the crack in the wood, a faint light pulsed upward. Red, steady, alive. I didn't want to look, but my body moved anyway, like something behind my ribs was pulling me down. One step at a time. The stairs were gone when I turned. Only a dark hole where the door had been. The attic was smaller now, the walls closer, the air too thick to swallow. I took a breath that didn't feel like mine and stepped toward the light. The boards bent under my weight, groaning like they were tired of keeping secrets. When I touched the floor, it gave way. The world dropped out beneath me. I fell through the dark and landed hard. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, smoke, wax, and something older than all of them. I was under the house, a crawl space I didn't know existed. Low ceiling, packed dirt, wooden beams, and in the center, a single candle still burning. The flame didn't move even with my breath. It just waited, like it had been burning for years. Around it, the ground was uneven, mounds of earth, soft and disturbed, freshly dug. I took one step closer. The candlelight flickered over something in the dirt. Fabrics, strands of hair, wax, and glass. So much glass. Dozens of broken jars half buried in the soil. The same names etched into them. But some were new, names I didn't recognize, and one written carefully across the largest piece. My own. I dropped to my knees, brushed the dirt away with shaking hands. The letters were still warm to the touch, like the glass had just been made. Something beneath it shifted, a soft sound like breath escaping the ground. And then fingers, small and pale, pressed up from the soil. I stumbled backward, clawing at the wall. The fingers moved again, slow, unhurried, reaching for the air. I grabbed a loose beam and pulled myself up, but my hand slipped on something wet. The wall was bleeding, thin streams of dark liquid running down the wood. The smell was sweet and metallic. The whisper came again, right beside my ear this time. "Don't fight it, Nina." I turned and saw her face through the floorboards above me, looking down from the attic. Half shadow, half light, eyes empty but alive. Her mouth moved slow, forming words I couldn't hear, but I could feel them. They crawled across my skin, down my spine, into my chest. The candle went out. The darkness swallowed everything, and yet I could see shapes moving in the soil, dozens of them, reaching, crawling, turning over each other. I started to crawl toward the far wall, my hands sinking into the soft ground. Something grabbed my wrist, cold fingers wrapping tight, pulling me down. I screamed, but no sound came out. My voice stuck somewhere deep in my throat, and then I heard another scream, "Mine!" But coming from beneath me, the earth moved again, shifting like breath beneath a blanket. A face pressed through the dirt. Pale, open-eyed, covered in soil. It was her, but younger. Her hair black, her lips clean, her skin unbroken. Alive and not alive at once. She smiled and whispered through the soil, "You were born here, remember?" The dirt began to rise around her, covering her face again, closing like water, and the candle lit itself once more. The flame was taller now, blue at the center, burning without sound. Beside it, a small object lay half buried. The wooden figure again, but split open down the middle. Inside it, something shimmered faintly, like a heart made of glass. I reached for it, but before my fingers touched it, I heard the noise. Footsteps above me, slow, dragging, deliberate, moving from room to room. Someone else was in the house. Heavy steps, not hers. Too slow to be human, too steady to be wind. The boards above groaned with each movement. Dust fell over me in soft clouds, and then silence again, until the floorboards began to open, one by one, letting the light from above spill down in narrow lines, each beam cutting through the dark like a knife. I held my breath. The last board cracked open, and something leaned down through the gap. A face I didn't recognize, but it smiled the way she used to. The face leaned closer. The candle flickered once, then steadied again. The light crawled over its features, and I realized it wasn't her. Not exactly, it was me. Older, worn, eyes empty but knowing. My own face staring back through the cracks in the floor.
I couldn't move.
The dirt around my knees tightened like hands, holding me still, keeping me there. The air pressed against my ears until I could only hear my heartbeat. The other me smiled, slow, deliberate, then whispered words I didn't understand. Low, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. The candle flame leaned toward her voice, pulled as if by breath, and the light began to change color. Faint red first, then gold, then black. Smoke rose from the ground in thin threads, twisting around my arms. The smell of burnt herbs filled the space again, and beneath it something else. The faint scent of rain on freshly dug earth. She reached her hand down through the floorboards. It passed through the air like smoke, transparent, shimmering, cold. When it touched my forehead, I saw everything, not as memories, but as moments still alive. The kitchen years ago, my grandmother whispering into jars before sealing them, each one glowing faintly before fading to silence. And behind her, a girl watching, small, curious, silent. Me. The voice of the other me spoke again. You were always part of it. I wanted to scream no, but the word died before reaching my lips. The scenes kept coming. The night my mother left, the way the house changed after, rooms that smelled of smoke and salt, my grandmother digging behind the house under the moonlight, her hands red with soil, her lips moving in prayer, and then the truth, the things she'd buried all those years ago. Not bodies, not curses, memories, each one trapped in glass and sealed with wax. Pieces of lives she didn't want to lose. Voices, faces, fragments of love and fear, all hidden in jars to keep them alive. But memories rot when you keep them too long. The light flared again. I fell back, gasping. The air burned my lungs like smoke, and the dirt began to shift beneath me. Shapes rose from the ground, dozens of them. Maybe more, each one carrying a jar close to its chest, their faces blurred, melted, unfinished, like half-remembered dreams taking form. They whispered together, one word over and over, return, return, return. The candle's flame stretched upward, touching the ceiling beams. The wood hissed and cracked but didn't burn. Instead, it began to open, splitting down the center to reveal the attic above. The other me was gone, but her voice lingered in the smoke. You can't bury memory. It buries you. Something behind me moved. A slow drag of fabric across dirt. I turned and saw her, my grandmother again, but this time her face was soft. No shadow in her eyes, just sorrow and a strange calm. She knelt beside me, hands trembling. Do you see it now, Hisha? Her voice shook on the last word. You were the last one left to remember. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she pressed a finger to my lips and pointed toward the open box. Inside it, the wooden figure lay in pieces, the glass heart still glowing faintly. She picked it up with care, as if it were alive, then placed it gently against my chest. It's yours now, she whispered. The glow passed into my skin, warm first, then burning. It filled me, spreading through my arms, my throat, my eyes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The candle flickered once more, and every jar in the room cracked open at once. Light poured out like smoke underwater, faces, hands, whispers spinning through the air. They circled us both, rising faster, louder, until I couldn't tell where her breath ended and mine began. She looked at me one last time, and smiled. Then her body began to fade. Not vanish, fade, like paper left in the sun too long. Her last words barely reached me through the noise. Don't let them forget again. The candle went out. The smoke sank back into the earth, and everything stopped. The silence after was heavy, almost human, like the house itself was listening. I opened my eyes again. The dirt floor was gone. The candle, the jars, the faces, all gone. Only my hand remained glowing faintly, and the sound of someone breathing behind me. Slow, steady, waiting. When I opened my eyes again, morning light filled the house. Thin, pale, almost white, too clean, too quiet. The air felt different, still but watching. The smell of smoke was gone. Only lavender and dust remained. I stood slowly, my legs heavy, my head full of whispers. The cracks in the floor were sealed again, as if nothing had ever opened there. The attic was empty now. No jars, no light, only a faint ring on the wood where the box had been. And my hand, still warm where she touched it. I walked downstairs in silence. Each step echoed longer than it should have. The house didn't creak anymore. It listened. In the kitchen, everything was just as before. The chair, the cup, the window open to the field. But the sunlight didn't move the way it used to. It flickered, like a flame seen through glass. I stepped outside. The air was cold even though it was summer. The grass bent away from my feet. The birds didn't sing. The village looked the same from afar. Smoke rising from chimneys, children near the square. But as I walked closer, I felt it. Something under the ground, shifting with each step. They watched me when I arrived. The women by the well, the old men by the church wall, their eyes following me, silent, unreadable. Maria Ruiz was there too. Her voice had returned, but she didn't speak to me. She just crossed herself and turned away. I tried to smile, to ask if anyone had seen the light last night. But the words came out wrong. Too slow, too heavy, like they weren't mine. I looked down at my hands. The faint glow still there under the skin, pulsing softly with each heartbeat. I hid them in my sleeves, pretended I didn't notice the way the air around me moved, like the world breathing in time with me. At the market, people stepped aside as I passed. No one met my eyes. Even the dogs lowered their heads, like they remembered something they shouldn't. I bought bread, though I wasn't hungry. When I handed the coins to the baker, she hesitated. Her fingers brushed mine. She gasped, pulled back fast, then whispered, "You have her touch." I left without saying a word. The whisper followed me through the square. The sound of the bell from the chapel was slower today. Lower somehow. Back home, the air was colder. The windows fogged from the inside again. The smell of earth returned with the wind, and faintly beneath it, smoke and herbs. I went to the garden behind the house. The soil was still disturbed where she used to dig. Fresh now, darker than before. Something small poked through the dirt. A jar, cracked but not broken. Inside, something shimmered faintly. I knelt and brushed the soil away. My name was written on the lid. I didn't open it. Couldn't. I just sat there, listening to the faint hum beneath the ground. The sun started to set behind the hills. Long shadows stretched across the field, and in the reflection of the jar I saw movement, a figure standing by the edge of the woods. She didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. Her outline faint in the dying light, but I knew that shape. I'd known it my whole life. It was her, my grandmother, or what was left of her. I blinked, and she was gone. Only the wind moving through the grass, but the hum under the earth grew louder, beating like a slow heart. I went inside before it got dark, closed every door, every window, but the air still felt full, alive somehow. When I tried to sleep, I heard it again, the faint sound of jars clinking softly in the walls, like they were breathing with the house. And just before I drifted off, I heard her whisper, not from outside, from within me, "Keep them safe, Nina." I woke in the dark, breath shaking, my hands glowing brighter now, faint light tracing veins up my arms. The same pulse the house made, the same rhythm as the ground. Outside, the night was silent again, too still to be real, and for the first time, I realized I could hear the soil moving. It whispered names I didn't know, all waiting to be remembered, all waiting for me. I stopped counting the days after that. The sun rose, but the air stayed the same. Cold, heavy waiting. The hum beneath the ground never faded. Sometimes faint, sometimes deep, always there, like the world had grown lungs beneath the soil. I tried to leave once, packed a bag, walked toward the road out of town. But every step felt wrong, like walking away from my own heartbeat. At the bridge, my chest began to ache. The pain sharp, steady, rhythmic. When I looked down at my hands, the glow had spread again. Faint lines of light running up to my elbows. I turned back without thinking. The moment I crossed the gate, the pain stopped. The hum beneath my feet softened, and I understood. The house didn't want me to leave. That night I dreamed of her again. My grandmother standing by the field, her hands full of soil and broken glass. She whispered something I couldn't catch, then smiled, and placed her finger over her lips. When I woke, there was dirt under my nails, and the smell of lavender in my hair. The next morning I found the first jar, not buried, left neatly on the porch, sealed, warm to the touch, no name written on it, just a faint glow from inside. I carried it inside without opening it, set it on the table where she used to work. The air thickened instantly, the same hum rising from the floor again. That night I heard footsteps outside, slow, dragging steps circling the house. When I looked through the window, the yard was empty, but the grass was pressed down in a ring, as if something had stood there all night. The next day, another jar appeared, then another. Each one left closer to the door, until the porch was full of them. They weren't from me. They weren't from her. They were from the others. The people from the village, bringing back what she'd taken. One by one. Maria Ruiz came last. She didn't speak, just placed a jar on the step and looked at me, tears in her eyes, lips trembling. Then she whispered, "We remember now," and walked away. I brought that jar inside too. The hum grew stronger, the walls trembling like the house was alive again. Every window fogged from the inside. Every candle flickered in the same rhythm. When night came, I sat by the table, the jars glowing faintly around me, and for the first time, I felt calm. Their whispers filled the room. Soft, layered, endless, not angry, not afraid, just memories breathing again. But one voice rose above the rest, a whisper I knew by heart. I turned toward the sound and saw her standing in the doorway. Not young, not old, something between both. Her eyes dark but kind again. "You brought them home," she said softly. Her voice cracked on the last word. Then she stepped closer, and I realized she wasn't standing on the floor. Her feet were buried in shadow, like roots growing from her body into the wood. The glow from the jars grew brighter. The hum shifted tone. It was no longer a sound. It was language. Old, broken words I didn't know I remembered. I whispered them back, one at a time, and the room began to change. The air thickened with warmth and light. The walls moved like breath. Every jar cracked open, and from each one, smoke rose slow and golden, shaping faces that hovered in silence. The lost ones, the ones she'd tried to keep. Now free again, they surrounded her, not in anger, in gratitude, each one touching her hand before fading to light. Her smile trembled. Tears ran down her cheeks like melted wax. "It's done now," she whispered, but I could see the truth in her eyes. It wasn't done. Something still bound her here, something still buried. The last jar still glowed on the table, the one with no name. She looked at it once, then at me, and I knew it was hers. Her memory, her life, her final breath. I reached for it, my hands trembling, light spilling from my palms. The hum slowed, deeper now, almost a heartbeat. She nodded once. "Open it!" I did. The wax broke with a soft sigh. Light poured out, flooding the room, and the wind outside stopped completely. Everything went white for a moment, then silent. When I opened my eyes again, she was gone. The jars were empty. The house still, but the hum was inside me now. The house hasn't slept since that night. Neither have I. Every breath I take, the walls move with me, quietly, like lungs made of wood. The jars are gone, but the glow still lingers in the corners. Soft, pulsing light that fades when I watch it. The hum inside me has rhythm now, a pattern that matches the wind outside. Like the world is learning to breathe again through me. I tried to write it down, every sound, every whisper, but the ink dried before I finished the first line. The paper turned yellow overnight, as if time itself bent around this place. At dawn, I heard the first knock. 3 slow taps on the door. I didn't move. Didn't need to. The air told me who it was. Maria Ruiz stood outside, her face pale, her eyes wide. She said the crops had begun to grow again. Overnight, without rain. But the roots reached too deep. Too far. She showed me her hands, dirt embedded in the lines of her palms, small veins of light running beneath her skin. The same as mine, she whispered. It's spreading. Then looked past me, toward the house, and her lips trembled like she wanted to pray, but couldn't remember the words. I asked if anyone else had changed. She nodded slowly. The whole valley breathes when you do. I closed the door, leaned against it. The hum behind my ribs louder now. Not a sound anymore, a pulse that moved through the air. That night I walked into the fields. The ground was warm under my feet. Every blade of grass swayed toward me. The same rhythm, the same pulse. Fireflies gathered in slow spirals, moving in patterns too precise to be random. And for a moment, I thought I saw her again. My grandmother, standing between the rows of wheat, watching me with a sad smile, her hands glowing faintly from within. She raised one hand toward the hills, then vanished as the wind turned cold. I followed the direction she pointed, up past the orchard to the old cemetery. The soil there was soft, freshly turned, even though no one had been buried in years. I knelt beside the largest mound, the one under the old oak tree, my breath fogged in the warm air, and I whispered her name. The ground shifted beneath my hands, slowly, like something exhaling from below. Not violent, just tired. I didn't dig. I didn't have to. The soil opened on its own, a narrow crack, deep and quiet. A light pulsed once, far below, then faded. When I stood, the wind had stopped again. The whole valley silent, waiting. Back at the house, I found the mirror in her room, the one she'd covered for years with a sheet. I pulled it away slowly and saw her face first, then mine, then both together. For a moment, I couldn't tell us apart. Her eyes, my breath, her mouth moving with my voice, whispering the same word over and over. Remember. I stepped back, but the reflection didn't move. It kept staring, lips still forming the word, until the glass cracked down the center. A faint light spilled out from the fracture, same golden hue as the jars once held, and the hum grew louder again. Coming from behind the walls, from beneath the floorboards, from me. I tried to leave once more that night, walked to the road at the edge of town, but when I looked back, the valley glowed softly in the dark, each house pulsing like a heartbeat, the whole village alive, connected, breathing in time. My chest tightened, the pain deep but familiar. I fell to my knees, gasping for air that wasn't mine. And when I opened my eyes again, the stars above flickered in rhythm too. I laughed, or maybe cried. It didn't matter, because I finally understood what she meant. This wasn't a curse, not anymore. It was continuation, a living memory carried through breath and blood. The valley didn't belong to time. It belonged to what remembered, and now it remembered through me. I walked home under the trembling stars, every step echoing twice, once in the world above, once below. And when I crossed the threshold again, the air whispered my name, like a sigh that had waited generations to be said aloud. The valley wakes before I do now. Its breath moves through the curtains, warm, patient, familiar. The house hums softly in the dark, the sound no longer strange to me. It feels like my own pulse now, when I walk through the rooms. The air shifts with every step, whispers rise and fade. Names I don't know but somehow remember. The mirrors no longer show my face, only shapes of light, shifting slowly as if remembering what a face once was. I don't fear it anymore. The silence, the glow, the pull beneath the floorboards. It's all part of the same breath now. Sometimes I still hear her voice, faint like wind through dry leaves, telling me what to tend, what to leave, what to let go. The fields have grown wild again, golden wheat swaying in slow rhythm. The roots thick and deep, warm when touched. They hum when night falls, like they're dreaming. No one from the village comes anymore, not since the light reached their doors. They keep their distance, watching from the road, hands trembling at their sides. But they know I'm still here, and they know the valley lives. Last week, a child came with a basket of bread, left it by the fence without looking up. Before he ran off, he whispered a prayer I didn't recognize. It wasn't to God, it was to the soil. I smiled, because that's how it begins again. Not with fear, with remembering. At night, I sit by the window, the glow beneath my skin calm now, soft, steady, endless. I can feel them all. Every name she kept, every life she saved from vanishing, moving through me in waves like a tide of memory. Sometimes they whisper stories of the years before the silence, of laughter and fire and fields that sang in the wind. And I listen, because I'm the only one who can now. The house no longer breathes alone. The entire valley exhales with me, each gust of wind, each tremor of earth, one slow rhythm that never breaks. I dream less now, because dreams are what the world does when it forgets. And here nothing is forgotten. The nights are longer than they used to be, but not dark. The air carries a pale shimmer, like mist lit from within. It moves with my breath. I think of her sometimes, of my grandmother, and the way her hands looked the last night I saw her. Calm, knowing, tired. She didn't want to stay. She just wanted someone to remember how. Now I do. I keep the same small jar on the table, the one that never opened. It doesn't hum anymore, but sometimes just before dawn, it warms beneath my hand, like a heartbeat too slow to hear. The birds no longer come near the house, but the trees bloom early now, their roots thick as veins, pulsing faintly when I touch them. Everything is alive. Everything remembers. The wind carries whispers from the edge of the valley. Soft, uncertain, still human. They speak my name sometimes, then fall quiet. They think I'm gone, that I vanished with her, but I'm still here. Not living, not gone, just part of what holds this place together. When I breathe, the hills answer. When I blink, the wheat bends. When I sleep, the ground hums softly beneath the house. And when morning comes, I open my eyes, and the air itself moves in greeting. Not a curse, not a blessing, just memory alive and patient, waiting to be remembered again.